The video game industry is full of stories of games that were developed but never released. Unfortunately, WWE 2K20 wasn't one of them, but it's left fans to wonder what the games might have been like had they been released. Join us now as we look at WCW Mayhem 2 and what happened? Why did it get cancelled? Be sure to subscribe and click on that notification bell for more video game content. The 90s saw some good to great wrestling games as gaming consoles improved and interest in professional wrestling grew during the Monday Night War. In 1999, Electronic Arts released WCW Mayhem for the PlayStation and Nintendo 64, and also later down the line the Game Boy Color would get a release. Although the gameplay received mixed reviews, it was the first WCW game to feature backstage areas and was lauded for its graphics and sound. The beauty of wrestling games was that no matter how bad the wrestling product was, i.e. WCW anytime after 1998, gamers could still enjoy a well-designed game. The problem was that Aki was no longer involved with the development of WCW video games after 1998's WCW NWO Revenge, and it clearly showed. WCW games weren't always great, especially on the PlayStation. We had WCW Nitro, WCW NWO Thunder, Mayhem was decent enough, and then it all fell apart when we got WCW Backstage. Quite a different story on the Nintendo 64, they were pretty much all good. But what about Backstage Assault? Yeah, for whatever reason, Electronic Arts decided to follow up with a completely different approach to wrestling games, producing the much maligned Backstage Assault, a 2000 game released for PlayStation and N64. The game had no in-ring action and was made up of what the title suggests, fighting entirely in backstage areas. While this was a novel concept, fans missed the chance to wrestle in the ring and the game did not sell very well. And that was probably mainly due to the awful graphics and sound, not to mention the unpolished gameplay. Maybe had the game been slightly more polished up, featured in-ring action and backstage brawling, or here assaulting, it might have succeeded. Undeterred, plans were made for a sequel to WCW Mayhem. According to various sources, the game was scheduled for a 2001 release for the new PlayStation 2. Unfortunately for gamers, WCW was bought out by the WWF and the game was cancelled, leaving fans wondering what might have been. What would this game have looked like and sounded like with the added power of the PlayStation 2, and what if any new gameplay features would it include? There's an inherent curiosity to this since it was produced during WCW's dying days and fans wondered what storylines might have been included as well as wrestlers. Let's take a deep dive into what happened and what was planned. Following the disastrous WCW Backstage Assault game, which only sold a measly 200,000 copies, Electronic Arts looked to build a better game. While feelings on Mayhem were mixed, it was clear that Backstage Assault was fatally flawed. While EA wasn't exactly going back to the proverbial drawing board, they knew better than to produce an all-backstage wrestling game. What is interesting about the backstory for Mayhem 2 is that EA reportedly went to Yuke's to develop the game's engine, which discarded EA's Backstage Assault engine. Yuke's revised its Aki engine, which was the one used for the widely praised WWF No Mercy, still considered one of the best wrestling games of all time, enhancing it to capitalize on the added capabilities of the PlayStation 2. Like many games in development that were never released, the information on Mayhem 2 is very limited. What we do know though is encouraging. According to IGN.com, WCW Mayhem 2 was set to feature all the biggest stars of WCW including Ric Flair, Booker T, Big Papa Pump and Sting. Additional features for this sequel include a cinematic storyline with branching paths, more than 1,000 different wrestling maneuvers and submissions, multiple match types like First Blood and Gauntlet, and several other fan-orientated surprises. At this point we're speculating, but what features might this game have had? Would it have kept Backstage Assault's backstage areas such as a boiler room and parking lot? Would it have incorporated these areas into actual matches? The concept of cinematic storylines with branching paths has potential, as storylines didn't mirror WCW storylines of the time. Rumour has it the game also featured voiceovers by various wrestlers, which would have added even more realism to the game. Voiceovers didn't even become standard in wrestling until SmackDown vs. Raw. It was released all the way in 2005. There is a YouTube video featuring voiceovers which suggests this was indeed part of the product.
Two-man enter, one man survives.
All my freaks know there's nothing finer than Scott Steiner.
Get ready for a good old-fashioned Harlem street fight.
Regrettably, we don't know if voiceover taunts would have been included in the game. It's likely the game would have featured commentary from WCW announcers. While fans may complain about the limited commentary in older games, today's WWE 2K20 commentary is so random it often seems like something from 2000. But what other aspects of No Mercy might have this game incorporated? With the power of the PlayStation 2 and GameCube, the graphics and sound would have likely been superior. Certainly there's no guarantee, but as we'll see, there's every reason to believe it would have capitalized on the PS2's 6th generation capabilities. Add in No Mercy's excellent Creator Wrestler mode, the ability to build up your wrestler, and the means to purchase various items such as clothing, thankfully in an era before microtransactions turned video gaming into unlicensed gambling, and Mayhem 2 could have been WCW's answer to No Mercy, only better. WCW had a number of talented stars even in its dying days, so its roster would include a number of veterans as rising stars. According to the article WCW Mayhem 2, the game that never happened, a lot of new characters would have been added like Dustin Rhodes and Dusty Rhodes, AJ Styles, Chuck Palumbo, Sean O'Haire, Mark Jindrak, Sean Stasiak. While there's been speculation the game might have featured ECW wrestlers owing to ECW folding in 2001, there's no way of knowing whether said stars would have gone to the WWF or WCW. Also, the game was developed before WCW and ECW folded, so having ECW stars in it seemed extremely unlikely. Still, with WCW's existing roster and the new stars mentioned, this game would have given players a chance to use a deep roster. Add in the Creator Wrestler mode, and there was room for some serious fantasy booking. With the game never being released, there is some confusion about what game was being developed by EA for WCW after Backstage Assault. More than one online article has confused the May 2000 issue of PlayStation Magazine with the game that would have been WCW Mayhem 2. For example, the website Lost Media Wiki had this to say about the game mentioned in the PlayStation Magazine. It is unknown how far along in development the game was when it was cancelled. It appeared on the cover of the May 2000 issue of PlayStation Magazine and had a 2-page spread on the game. From the article, it appears that the game would have been similar to the previous WCW game Backstage Assault, where there is no ring and all of the gameplay and fighting happens in the backstage area with a variety of weapons. Consider this, the May 2000 issue of PlayStation Magazine featured a 2-page article on the new game in development. The article was specific about what the game was all about. What differentiates this game from the handful of other wrestling titles out there is the fact that it won't feature a ring. Yep, you heard us right, the game won't have a wrestling ring in it. Now before you start running around and freaking out, let us tell you exactly what that means. Just because it isn't in a ring doesn't mean that WCW 2K isn't a wrestling game. It just approaches the genre from a different angle. The May 2000 issue of PlayStation Magazine has been repeatedly quoted as relating to WCW Mayhem 2. However, that's simply not the case. Reading the article, however, it's obvious that the PlayStation Magazine writers are discussing a game that has not been released yet, and that game has to be Backstage Assault, not WCW Mayhem 2. Consider that Backstage Assault was released in North America on 31st October 2000. The PlayStation Magazine article lists WCW 2K as having a release date of Q3 of 2000, which matches up with the 31st October release. There should be no question that the wrestling game WCW 2000 is WCW Backstage Assault under its original name. People who have played the game, and they have our pity for having to endure it, have noted that the screenshots posted in the May 2000 PlayStation Magazine resemble Backstage Assault. Why there is so much confusion about this is likely due to the people not playing the actual game and not looking into things closely. Whatever the case, the article in the May 2000 PlayStation Magazine is about Backstage Assault, not what would have been WCW Mayhem 2. While fans never got to see WCW Mayhem 2, EA didn't waste the time they spent developing it and used it to develop the game Jam Vendetta. Jam Vendetta was released in 2003 for PlayStation 2 and GameCube. According to Reddit user DJ Sue, I can confirm that Aki was working on a WCW game before the buyout. It never made it very far into development before they scrapped the project due to the WWE buyout. I was on the EA QA, Quality Assurance team, and worked on a lot of their wrestling titles, worked on both Backstage Assault and Def Jam, because I was one of the wrestling guys in the department and we usually got pre-alpha builds to take a look at early on, and we never even received those. There was a brief proof of concept video of Goldberg I recall making the rounds in the press, but it wasn't a playable demo or anything. Def Jam Vendetta was a professional wrestling game, albeit one with a twist. It features players battling their way through an urban fighting league and sees the player battle a number of rappers, including various Def Jam artists such as DMX, Funkmaster Flex, Ghostface Killer, Redman, and many others. Many fans have described it as similar to the highly regarded No Mercy game. If you want to get an idea of what WCW Mayhem 2 would have been like, then check out Def Jam Vendetta. Whether you're a wrestling fan and/or a gamer, WCW Mayhem 2 looks as if it would have been one of WCW's best video games. While fans have compared it to WWF No Mercy, which is high praise, it's also been compared to WCW NWO Revenge, another strong wrestling game. Again, one of the strong selling points for Mayhem 2 would have featured an updated Aki engine that would have capitalized on the extra capabilities of the PlayStation 2. What would the game have been like? Sadly, all we can go by is Def Jam Vendetta and lament this cancelled wrestling video game, another one of the consequences of the WWF buying out WCW. But there you have it guys, the story of WCW Mayhem 2 and what happened to it. Do you think this game would have been gaming gold or gaming garbage? What next cancelled wrestling game should we look at next? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling video game content.